Hey guys and gals, are you ready for another action-packed episode of the best little wrestling podcast in the business? That's right, it's Shooting The Shiznit, episode 37, and yes, it's Tuesday, live from STS Studios in St. Louis, Missouri, where it is hot as a bag full of assholes. Yeah, that's right. Can you actually get hotter than that? I'm not sure. I don't think you can. A big thanks out to Bob McGee, my buddy Bob McGee, and Sean at Wrestling to Max website, w2mnet.com, and you can reach Bob at www.pwbts.com. Thank you guys for posting the podcast. Also, let everyone know you can go to tinyurl.com/STSPod merch, and you can get t-shirts and you can get stickers. This Thursday, Matthew comes back for his fourth show, three-time champion, on Who Wants to Be the Best Shiznitter Ever. Guys, I always try to get 30 minutes in an episode. I actually took a moment to look at this episode. It looks like about 42 minutes, or it will go over 40 minutes. I do apologize, but it's a great episode. It's a guy that wouldn't come on anyone else's podcast but mine. So that's the cool thing. Remember, you can go to stspod.club, and that's where you can see the episodes. If you're on the website with your computer, you can actually subscribe to Amazon Music Unlimited. You can also do Amazon Prime, and we get a kickback. I'm at Comic Book Mark BT. That's at Comic Book Mark BT. We're also on iTunes and Stitcher. And guys, the group, the official Facebook group for this podcast is Cool Kids Wrestling and MMA Talk Facebook group. That's the Facebook group. You guys have to do a search for it. Ask to come in. We'll let you in, and you act a fool, we'll kick your ass out. That's just the way it works. I want to put over my buddies at Suplex City Limits, JoJo over there at Creative Control, and another podcast that I'm loving right now is Keeping It 100 with Conan and crew. Now, let's get to the podcast. A guest from the green room. This podcast is about people I've known forever or people I don't know. This is a guy that I've known forever, but we ain't talked in a long time. And we were just seeing each other around and know each other by our first names. And I've always wanted to know certain things about him. So that's why I'm bringing him on. It's my buddy, my old buddy, Dr. Mike Lano, right?
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter, Lano. It doesn't matter what. But I just want to say this, that I have very fond memories of you, and I think I only saw you wrestle. This was after we all loved your newsletter, Wrestling Riot, for many, many years. It was sort of the apex of smart people, or in my case, I was a magazine photographer, but I loved hanging around everybody. And we were all, I think if I'm right, you wrestled on that Dennis Coraluzzo show to benefit Tom Robinson, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't it the Tom Robinson?
I was on the first match. I wrestled the first match right before we went on. I've told this story not on here, but right before I went on, Dennis tells me, look, you can't do any of that, blah, blah, blah. Cornette wants a regular match. Cornette wants a regular match, that's what he told me. And that is something that I didn't hold it against Cornette, but I understood. I had a horrible match. It was only my third match or my second match, so, I only ended up having 18 wrestling matches. But come to find out, years and years later, our old buddy Dennis was just trying to cover my ass. Cornette knew nothing about that. He didn't tell me just to have a regular match, because as Cornette said, there was no way I could have had a regular match. But yeah, we were both there for that. I don't know if we were, and that I've never been able to get a copy of this. I had a copy of it, but then got rid of it with my first wife, my ex-wife, and there was a photograph of me, Cornette, and I know you remember this, and Angel. Angel, and it was me and Cornette just having the shit-eating grin right with her boobs. because she had these massive big boobs.
Yeah.
And you took it. You took the infamous photograph.
Angel Amoroso, the Virgin Princess. That was later. She was just the Virgin Princess.
Oh, the Virgin Princess.
Soiled
I don't
wedding.
remember that.
Well, that was her character later, but back then she was kind of. Rumor has it she was a rat, basically, and there were a couple of them, but. She was a very educated fan. I actually was to her house. She had two sisters who were very beautiful and her mom, and they all loved wrestling. They all went to the shows. But when I started buddying up a year or so later, and I'd known these guys since the Chic Train, Sabu, Terry, and Rob Van Dam, and Judge Dredd, and some of those others, but at least Van Dam and Sabu were quite friendly, as was pretty much everybody. Art and Eddie Guerrero. I think when we went in with the AAA show into New York, and I was doing Ron Scholar's PR at that point, Angel Amoroso and the other one, Jackie, drove Art and Eddie, the late Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero, to the show from the airport. So Angel was like all over the place, all over the East Coast, Northeast Indies, and was just as famous as any one of the guys. But yeah, that photo is a lot of fun. We had so much fun at those shows, and I think, didn't we go to Ribbits, Cornette's place in Philly afterwards? The show was in Jersey near Deptford, but we went to Cornette's place where they had the Funyun rings, and then there was some kind of a non-alcoholic strawberry drink that Jim Cornette and Bobby Eaton loved at that place. So,
but Angel, we laugh about her and her gimmick. You're right. Her sister was beautiful. She was a beautiful girl. Her mother was beautiful. Those people were just so sweet to me. All three of them, her especially, she was just the sweetest thing, and had a really good time back. When we took that photo, you would think someone she's never met. We met the first time and everything. Well, I had met her a couple times before that, but she just played right along, just a sweet girl. I actually talked to her years later on Facebook. She was there for a little bit. She did some really. I want to say X-rated, but I guess they were X-rated. She did some S&M stuff.
Yeah, right.
With a paddle or something. So later on, she got into that, which I'm not judging her. I'm just saying that's where she took. And then the last time I talked to her, she was just suburban wife, with kids and such. So she said she's had a good life. So that's a good thing.
I don't think, because I was asking you if you follow today's stuff, which. For me, unless it's like Lucha Underground on Wednesdays or the fantastic New Japan stuff, and the stuff they just did in Long Beach, their first U.S. tour was out of this world. But that sort of feeling, I don't know if that exists amongst the people at like Ring of Honor or Dragon Gate or Evolve or any of the shows of today. And I was asking you if you watch today's stuff, because at least with WWE, it's very hard because it just is not as entertaining. The indies are incredible. They still are great. They've been great since like the late 80s, early 90s, our sort of heyday of it. But, it's just kind of frustrating for me, like this NXT stuff, which is basically their farm system. They're great workers like a Bobby Roode or Prince Devitt. They're sent there. It's like, well, it used to be purgatory before it became a touring attraction and a really happening show. But they've got to learn that slow plodding style. And, so you see somebody, any of the top guys, and they're like operating at the 5% capacity that rather than the 95% that they used to do on the indies. They're just not able to do what they could have done because that's the style they're locked into now. So it's very frustrating and boring for me. I often just tape the stuff, and I'm going to shut up in a sec, and fast forward through it to the good parts. Like I used to do during the horrific last days of WCW, I would just fast forward till Ric Flair gave a promo or something.
Yeah, well, you're right. You're correct. We did an episode. We do a special edition on Thursdays. Last Thursday we did Cool Kids Countdown, which we just kind of like the top 10 promotions we'd watch right now if we had to pick which ones, how down the line where we would go, and it is and we had a discussion in our Facebook group about this. WWE has a certain style. No matter what worker it is, they turn Nakamura into a WWF wrestler, a WWE star.
It's horrific. It's boring.
It's horrible.
Yeah, and if any of you guys, if you watched him against Kenny Omega or AJ or Tanahashi, for example, the fantastic matches, or Okada,
Right.
those incredible matches, you can see he's got to do the same series of moves in the same orders to get the pop. He has to do the whole ring entrance thing. Everywhere he goes, the exact same thing, where in New Japan, he was more like a human being and not a robot, and that's the style they're forced to become. They're just robotic.
I just right now, to me, I went back. I was that tape trader that got Japanese wrestling. Maybe it was 3 weeks old or a month old after the 4 shows on each one of them, and I always watched New Japan and lost my interest. I went back when New Japan World came, and I'm followed the G1 the last 2 years, and to me, Japanese wrestling is wrestling. I've turned into a match guy. I love. And because the stories these days, because we've seen it all. Me and you've seen everything. The stories seem lame, so we need to have something different. And I really think, like you said, the indies, there's groups like Freelance, Gory Pro, you've got PWG out there, AAW. They're really striving very good because they're giving the customer something they're not seeing on television. And
PWG, every single show I've been honored to cover, and I really covered them a lot at the beginning, where you would have Bryan Danielson against Samoa Joe, and the Havana Pitbulls against 2 incredible, they were so lucky. They could pull TNA wrestlers, the top Japanese, the top, some top lucha guys, and they're still at that high level. They're amazing. Ring of Honor's amazing. They always seem to, when the WWE raids and perhaps takes talent or they lose talent, whatever, even to TNA, Impact, now GWF, they're on their third name. They come back. But PWG, those shows every show's been 5-star. It's just out of this world. And so I'm sorry to see Nat the Jacksons brothers may cut down on their time in PWG, but absolutely incredible stuff. But they use comedy the right way. I was about to ask you. You remember the territory days, and if you grew up on, I think you grew up on a mix of both Nick Goulas, Jarrett, great Tennessee.
Well, mainly Jarrett. Yeah, Jarrett. I didn't see much, but Jarrett and I always give my to Jarrett because Memphis was the one that I grew up watching, and that was what I enjoyed. And then later, like in between Memphis and before tape trading, well, just when tape trading started for me was in '85, and I really become a huge Mid-South wrestling fan. So it was the Southern way, and I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to let you say it. There was a brand of comedy that we accepted back then.
But it was not done at the expense of having the product exposed to where it is now, to where from Vince on down. I wouldn't say they insult their audience, but the comedy is like the prevailing thing. And if you take Tozawa, for example, who was with Noah, not Noah, but Dragon Gate, an incredibly serious wrestler. Now he's forced to do comedy, or Sami Zayn, who was El Generico, who really never had to do comedy in Ring of Honor and all the other great indies he was in throughout the Northeast or Canada. And it's so, depending on the territory. We had some comedy and some horrific stuff in my home base, Los Angeles territory, where I shot for the program, the Frankenstein monster. But that was towards the end when our territory was dying a slow death. Jarrett, Mid-South, whole Tennessee, they were like the last. They survived Don Owen in Portland. They were the last the last territory to go that Vince hadn't killed off. They were the very last one to survive. And I think the comedy was just, it was, sometimes there, maybe with Tommy Gilbert doing some of his characters or whatever towards the end, but it was never done at the expense of the seriousness or trying to mess with fan perception of breaking suspension of disbelief.
I agree because one of the funniest guys, and I was a huge mark for him. growing up, doing interviews when he was a babyface, not really much when he was a heel, because he turned into a whole different serious character. Some people may not even remember this, and YouTube it. Jimmy Valiant was comedy, and but none of his matches say he was going to feud against the heel Bill Dundee. At no time after he came out and did, Boogie Woogie, he wasn't doing Boogie, Handsome Jimmy then with the Lance Russell. Did you feel you wanted to laugh about that upcoming match with Bill Dundee? So there was like you said, there's a believable ability there that he could do dance, have, FM 100 on the back of his trunks, and he could be whatever. But you knew, no matter what he done on that interview, that Memphis, Mid-South Coliseum against Dundee or whoever, that was going to be serious. Now, not always on the spot shows. Valiant was one of my least favorite on spot shows because he played a lot. And it was before I even knew, everything about the business. But he was one of those guys that did too much comedy on the house shows. And he would just, or spot shows is what they called them, when you was in Blythe, Arkansas, or Jonesboro, he would just, take 15 minutes to get to the ring. And sometimes 15 minutes before he locked up, the crowd was into it. He was over. But me, I was, saying, quit playing, let's wrestle kind of thing. But you're right. I mean, that's a great point to bring it. Comedy didn't, you didn't look down on them until you had some, Lawler booking was, was really out there sometimes with some of the creatures that he brought in, and just really out, he had some guy shooting fire out of his chest or something, some goofy stuff like that. But we, like you said, I think every promotion, and you brought up the comedy. Now, recently, Cornette has brought this up in a bunch, and Meltzer actually went on Cornette's show talking about this, but PWG had some spot maybe a couple of years ago where we had someone throw a grenade there. And then all the guys bumped, or we had the thumb spot where they do. Where do you see that fitting into there? And is it just because that crowd gets it, and it does? It's not that it would work anywhere else, but we do know that crowd gets it.
Yeah, well, that's what I see, there, and it extends to a Northern California territory that's been around since 94. All Pro Wrestling, APW, which was founded by Roland Alexander. But PWG, and they don't even, or APW and some of the other top groups out here on the West Coast, which I see pretty often, EWF, Jesse Hernandez's, they don't do the comedy. The comedy stuff, though, is very intelligently written. It's not lowbrow stuff like Vince and Pat Patterson writing something to where you'll see Pat Patterson as one of the McMahon family goons with tire tracks on his white jockeys. That kind of stuff, just I don't even laugh at it, and
right.
wasn't when it was occurring. But the stuff they do is back of the head, very intelligent. It's like Ernie Kovac's 50s television stuff, or Soupy Sales at his genius period in the early 60s. So they might do. I forget some of the things that I've seen, but it fits in, and the audience they're not an audience that will just say, this is awesome, when it doesn't warrant it, which has been a big pet peeve of Dave Meltzer and many others.
I understand. I feel that way, too. Yeah.
So a lot of the audience at things, and I hate to say include Impact or TNA or GWF, whatever you want to call it, which has improved vastly with Jeff Jarrett coming back from the horrific Dixie Carter days. But the crowd sometimes, I feel that they're forced to chant the different hot happening chants of the moment, even when it doesn't warrant it. And in PWG, those chants don't come out, and the chants are far different and specific only to Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, for example. They just don't chant them unless something warrants it. The audience is so smart, and it's because the shows sell out within like 5 seconds. And I'm not even exaggerating. The venue, they have a very good deal there, so they won't move to a larger venue, which I think they could do 5 times the audience that they're getting easily, and perhaps even more than that. So that audience is just so super smart, and there's always a huge celebrity person there, for example, that is way smart wrestling-wise, like Sofia Vergara and her husband, Joe, I can't think of his name, or Ronda Rousey.
Hey, let me just tell you, that's two beautiful people right there. I'm my manhood, and I'm okay with it to say that you just named two beautiful people there.
Yeah, another beautiful person, and I love them all, is Ronda Rousey and her four horsewomen. The Shayna Baszler, who was just at that Mae Young Classic, who is just an underrated talent. I hope she gets signed and she can do a feud of her Blackheart character with that and Natty Neidhart, but in WWE. But they've been to many shows there as well. So there's that element, and there's a real camaraderie. Everybody knows everybody, and the boys before and after the show, all around the PWG ring, do their gimmicks sales, which dates back where that started was Memphis wrestling. I think in the late 60s, early 70s. They didn't have that anywhere else when I was touring the territories to shoot for the magazines. I only saw it there, and it really created a bond with the workers, the athletes, and the fans, and it's continued to this day. Now, whether it's a Jimmy Hart Legends show in Tennessee or whatever, you still see that, and nobody does it as well as they've always done it in Tennessee. But they have that at PWG, and so the audience is probably the smartest audience, I think, even exceeding Ring of Honor's audience of late.
Right. Okay, hey, we're going to take a quick commercial break here. We're going to be back with Dr. Mike right after this commercial. I hope everyone's enjoying this episode of Shooting the Shiznit. This coming Thursday, the special edition with Who Wants to Be the Best Shizniter Ever. That's right, this is a game show podcast, a wrestling game show podcast. So guys, do me a favor and listen this Thursday. It'll come right through your iTunes feed, or you can look through it on SoundCloud there. Listen to Who Wants to Be the Best Shizniter Ever. Back with Dr. Mike. We talked about current stuff, and I knew that when I first got you on, we're going to end up talking about, and maybe end up having to bring you back in a couple of months and talk about other stuff. Well, and I had some stuff I wanted to ask you about here in this second part. We got probably about 12 more minutes we want to do. Mike, you've been around forever. I mean, and by the way, I seen a current picture of you. You look fantastic for you're 90, right? No, I'm just kidding.
90. 61.
Not bad. No, see, I'm 51. You're 10 years older than me, and still look like Dr. Mike. But you've been around doing photographs forever, and I knew the name before I knew you because you contributed to wrestling magazines and such. So I want you to take the people that listen to my podcast, I want you to take us back. What was the first show? Give us the year, and do you remember who was wrestling that day?
It was like at what later became, it was Strelick Stadium. It was a LaBelle smaller venue, the big venue for the Los Angeles Mike LaBelle Cal Eaton territory, and it was still a Cal Eaton territory. They had, obviously their little satellite house shows, or we had different names for them back then, but it was at Strelick Stadium, and it was Iron Mike DiBiase, Blassie, I forget who Mark Lewin worked with. I think he actually teamed with Thunderbolt Patterson, if I'm not mistaken. And Paul Jones and Nelson Royal were on it, so it was, quite a cast. Pepe Lopez against Pepper Gomez, who I would end up living about a block away from when I moved from L.A. to Northern California. But I was already doing, before I went to my first house show, I was already doing fan clubs. And the reason we didn't have newsletters back then, as Wrestling Riot was, one of the top newsletters. You produced that. Or Jeff Osborne, our friend Jeff, with Cassette Wrestling News, or any of them on up to Observer and Torch and 3 Count by Alex Marvez, etc. So we were doing them, and I want to see if that was why you were doing Wrestling Riot. We did these. I took over the first fan club I had before I went to house show was for the it was not the only one, but it was one of them for the Sheik, and then I later did the Tolis Brothers, and the first two guys that subscribed were Jimmy Cornette and Eddie Gilbert. And then the last one, John Arisi and I took over the Fred Blassie fan club from my L.A. territory boss, Jeff Walton, who had to give it up when he became the PR guy. But we were doing those fan clubs primarily to do the newsletters, and that was our creative outlet. So when you did Wrestling Riot, was that kind of, it was a creative outlet thing for you, was it not? And
No. Honestly, when I first started it, it did turn into that, and that's when I first started it. It was actually tape update. I was sending my tapes, and I was selling wrestling tapes, and I would send it out to people. And then I had got a call. I don't know if I've ever told this story. Very few people know this story, so enjoy this quick classic here. I got a call from WCW's Wayne Coulter, and he was really upset with me selling WCW stuff. Apparently, he was good friends with Kevin Sullivan at the time, and I wasn't selling WC. I was selling Florida stuff, and he was going to sue me. And Kevin Sullivan was going to sue me because I didn't have the rights to Florida wrestling. I shit my pants and got scared for about 3 weeks. And then I came out with TU Wrestling Riot. I don't know if people remember that. And then I had a character named CW, Wayne Coulter's name backwards, Swaggart, it was his name. And he didn't sell wrestling tapes. He sent you wrestling tapes for free for a donation. So from that point on, we gave wrestling tapes for free for donations, and I kept a real good eye on my taxes and made sure that the extra money that I was making was put there, and never heard again from Wayne Coulter. I guess he thought he scared the shit out of me, but then he didn't. And then we started adding other people, and the Bulletin, I've got them all out recently just to look through them and really thought about doing a book. I've got some stuff missing, have to work with my buddy Jeff Singer on that. But it was, I don't know how to explain it. It's very hard to explain what Wrestling Riot really was. It was not a news, unless it was me going to, one of the spot shows, and then we always had the comedy part, and then we had the Ultimate Roader shirt. I don't know if you... yeah. And the Hulk Suck shirt.
And Jeff Singer, that's a name I have not heard in years, so please say hi to Jeff.
I will. Me and Jeff still communicate. We're talking about bringing him on a show and talking about his newsletter, which was really, really popular. But, you talk about, it's funny because the names that subscribed to my bulletin were, legends, really. You didn't see them as legends then. There was guys like Cornette and Heyman sending me checks, which I wish I would have copied and kept. And stuff like that were paying for the bulletin, which was, and we had we got 300 to 400, hardcore fans that loved what I was doing along with what everyone, and become a fan club of sorts where, we felt like we had the smartest of the smarts reading it, and that's what it was. We felt like that was the cool kids, the guys like Meltzer and blah, 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 Wade Keller. My subscription list, I wish I still could find a list of that, was the who's who of wrestling plus who's who of fandom. I mean, I said you've been around forever, and the thing about it is we've been fans forever, and it was we were the branch of super fans before there was Twitter, before there was anything like that. And that's what I wanted to ask you, because you brought it up before I even got to it. You said, well, we didn't have the newsletters, we didn't have this before. What do you remember when, because it started before me. I was smartened up, I don't know if this name's familiar, but Dick Bourne is the one that smartened me up to the Observer. And also Steve Monero from St. Louis, Missouri.
From St. Louis, Steve Monero.
He sent me his list, plus I started subscribing, and his list was really, like, at the time when I started his list, he listed the top tag team in the United States was the Nightmares, which I absolutely loved, but it was a smart top 10, and I never thought that you said, okay, I get it now. They're excellent workers, and that's why they were the top team. But Dick Bourne sent me, I remember bitching one time, because I went with the storylines. I said, hey, fucking Ric Flair this, I hate Ric Flair, I love Dusty Rhodes. And he said, "Man, start reading this. You know, you're a smart guy. You should be smartened up, kind of." And I always knew it wasn't legit, but I never knew how they did it. And I also enjoyed it to the sense that I knew it wasn't legit, but I was able to still enjoy it. Just like, you know, you go see Wonder Woman or whatever movie, you know they're not flying around, but you still enjoy it. So that's why I always enjoyed it. But when did the smart fandom start? I mean, what year would you say that we started, you know, having, when you go around the country, you consider yourself one of the smart fans. But when did you have other people walking up to you kind of saying, you know, I know what's going on or stuff like that? I mean, you photographers, you guys got backstage when other people didn't. Same way with me. I did too and got smartened up. But when did you start seeing more fans come up to you that were smart to your level?
Well, not necessarily coming up to me, but you knew that they were smart. I mean, when even before I could drive, I was going up to San Francisco, and a couple of times Dave Meltzer's parents picked me up at the airport. I stayed at their house. Dave just lost his father a couple of weeks ago.
Right, yeah. We had talked about that.
There would be fans both in Los Angeles, that territory, and the Roy Shire, San Francisco territory, yelling rest holds as early as 72, 73. And so that's a bit of smart, you know, right there when guys would be laying on the mat doing that. But I think probably when Dave Meltzer took that whole concept and it meshed legit reporting, you know, real journalism with tape trading and all of that stuff, I'm guessing 82. That's kind of when it happened. Georgianne Macropolis was another figure. She wasn't quite into the heavy duty shooting because she also was trying to maintain her bridge with the wrestlers, the people behind the scenes, and TriWF, for example. But she was a big contributor. You know, there were quite a few, but I'm guessing 82. I mean, when my Tolis Brothers newsletter, which I don't know if I've ever sent you them, but if you're digging out the Fantastic Wrestling Riots, I should dig out some of those from the early 70s, 72, 73, because those newsletters I barely covered. By that point in doing newsletters, I barely covered the person, you know, the honoree, John and Chris Tolis. I had a full page on wrestling in South Africa, England, Australia, a bunch of stuff on Japan because Koichi Yoshizawa would send me photos and ticket stubs, which I would Xerox as part of the page or pages on Japanese and Mexican wrestling. And I wish I would have kept that concept up, but I was just basically kind of copying what Tom Burke was doing with Ring Magazine, and that was
right.
that.
I remember that. Yeah, Tom Burke, yeah.
Those were as close to shoot. What Norm Keitzer did with Wrestling Review and Tom Burke when he took over as editor of Ring Wrestling, when it was not just half boxing, half wrestling, but full wrestling, was like trying to cover stuff seriously without hyperbole, like the Victory Sports Series. And that's the only surviving newsstand magazine in the United States now is Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the last bastion of the wrestler inside wrestling. But Norm and Tom Burke had, you know, very serious, you had the results, and they described, you know, whatever angles were happening on the TV. And that was as early as Shoot Stuff happened. And they were doing that. And even Scott Epstein with the half bodybuilding, half wrestling magazines. So it might even go prior to that, like maybe 75, 76, when those guys were at their peak. But I think in general, seeing fans super smartened in a lot of areas, whether they came up to me or others, photographers, that would be 82 with really the Wrestling Observer. Because Dave had done newsletters and was a contributor to mine going back to the early 70s. He did his California Wrestling Report, which was a legit, serious, you know, it wasn't a fandom thing, but he was covering the angles, the results from Northern California, and did a great job with that. And so when the Wrestling Observer kind of really kicked off, as I said, pairing it with tape trading and all this international interest in wanting to see good wrestling, 82.
Yeah, that's and you know, I remember it was 85. Let's see, wait, no, it was 84 because I graduated in 85. I came from in 1984. Came that summer. I went to school in 85, and and went to high school and knew everything then about professional wrestling. So it was kind of fun listening to my friends still talk. I mean, but Memphis wrestling was so popular. Everyone wanted to grow up and be Jerry Lawler, and it was just so popular there. And I went to my seniors. That's when I got smartened up, and from that point on, I just kept learning more and more, become a photographer, and become friends because of the Philly wrestling connection with Jerry Lawler, and still, first name basis with King today. So that's just one of those things where it's just fun to be able to talk to someone you grew up to, that you grew up watching, and I compare that to, like if I was hanging out with somebody, that played Gilligan or on I Dream of Jeannie. That for Memphis wrestling was a big deal in our area. Okay, we only got a few minutes left, and I know people that listen to my podcast listen to a bunch of other podcasts, so they're going to say if you don't ask Mike about this and give him a few minutes to say something about it, then you didn't ask him what you should ask him. So I'm going to ask you, and you can respond or you can say no comment. So what is your response, or what do you think about some of these podcasts, and I'm mainly one of them, that uses you almost like a caricature, that uses you as a comedy figure, that has these people on here that's telling that everything you did, in your...
I haven't made the time, which is my fault, to listen to them. I've heard and told by others what they're doing, but it's like the third-hand gossip, or maybe even more generations of it, to where whatever they're saying, there's no, most of that stuff, it doesn't even come close to what happened or the truth. So I just haven't had time. I've had a lot of health issues in the last year because I'm still fat, can't drop the weight at my age. So that's another reason why I just haven't had time and didn't want to participate in that stuff. But you being a longtime friend doing work that I respected, I mean, I never got really in the ring. You certainly have, and you had many, I don't know, I think you said you had 19 or 20.
I had 18 or 19 matches, but, I managed in the Memphis area on the indie scene for years, at least. Well, I went strong for 5 or 6 years there, but it does. The thing about it is, I wanted to ask you. That's perfect comment. We won't say another word about it. I appreciate it because there's been, the Mike Lano that's portrayed there is not really the Mike Lano I know, so that's a good thing. Guys, I want to thank Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike, two things before we get off because I'm going to go a little over this time. Number one, I want a copy of that photo since I know you know where it is. I'm joking, by the way.
I just have to find it because I've got another couple of Jersey, Philly. I don't like using the term rat because they were very educated female fans who
right
hanging around backstage. But I'm going to send you some other ones and ask if you remember who they were, because some of them, there was this beautiful brunette. I don't quite know who. I can't remember her, and I've been going through some of those photos trying to organize my stuff. The wrestling, MMA is more what I do now. There just isn't as much wrestling, to keep me busy when I'm able to physically. So it's been boxing and MMA. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know if it's going to be a shoot or a total work mess, McGregor, Mayweather, but I'm looking forward.
And also, though, I mean, you find that photo of me and Courtney and Angel, and there is a famous photo of you that's probably, if everyone can remember this, there's a photo with Mike working on Mick Foley. And a longtime friend of.
That was in my dental office. Yeah, that was in my dental office. He and Colette came out. And she filmed, he came out actually quite a few times. One time was a surprise. He brought Abby with him when they were in WCW feuding. And we went to San Francisco's Chinatown restaurant. Abby picks up the tab, and he goes, make sure you tell Meltzer that I paid for this, because I think he thought that Dave was, here we go with ugliness trolling. He thought Dave had been reporting for years that he and the original Sheik, Eddie Farhat, were cheap and, tight with the dollar. And Abby, if you were around him, I never saw that aspect. So he asked us to do that. But anyway, that occasion, I'm working on Mick in my dental office. Colette is filming it and taking stills, and that was when Flair debuted on Vince TV, whatever year that was, late 91, 92.
Right, and that is it was in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, wasn't it? It was it was in Wrestling World. It was in quite a few. It was in the Gong before Gong went bankrupt in Japan. All right, man. Hey, we're going to get off here. Thanks again. We went a little long, guys. We enjoyed it. My old buddy there, Mike Lano, he said he doesn't really care what I call him, just so I call him for supper, you know. Dr. Mike, it was a pleasure, and I appreciate your professionalism. For everyone that's here and listening for the 37, that's the Mike I know. So if you know another Mike, I don't know him, just put it that way. Hey, guys, we'll be back next Tuesday. That's right. Shooting the Shiznit every Tuesday right here. Same bat time, same bat channel.